Welcome to episode 262 of In Touch with iOS, the show that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg, and I have Chuck Joyner back on the show. How are you doing, Chuck? I'm so glad you're here.
I'm great, Dave. I'm great. Looking forward to next week in MacStock and trying to keep all the balls in the air between now and then.
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I represented this week wearing my MacStock shirt, so I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I always look forward to seeing Ben Roethig here. How are you doing, Ben?
A little bit in pain, but I'm ready to do the show.
All right. Well, we really appreciate it. I hope you feel better. But we got some good stuff to talk about this week. We will talk about MacStock a little later. Like Chuck said, there's only 1 week away. The time has just flown by this year. I'm just amazed that we're already near to see all of our friends at MacStock. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. We got some security releases to happen, all kinds of news. We're going to hit on, we're going to ask you guys a little bit about the Apple Watch, some tips and beta, all the fun stuff we usually have here. But let's go ahead and start with the very first story. Apple re-releases the rapid security response to iOS 16.5.1 to patch a pretty serious security exploit. After a very rocky start, it has released this version. It's actually version C of 16.5.1. They did release it earlier in the week, and I had, as many of us do, you knew it was a security response, so I installed it right away. So then they pulled it because there was a problem. So then a couple days later, as we record this week, they released it was letter A. This is now letter C, and they were very, very aware of this issue. And usually these rapid responses are something that Apple can do and do a very quick security fix without having to do a full firmware upgrade by reinstalling the whole, the next version of the OS at .1. I believe this had to do with a lot of a security flaw with affecting how websites loaded. That's kind of important. Did you guys, Chuck, did you install it? I hope you did, because this is very important.
I did not, David. I still
shame on you.
Well, it comes down to a question of which do I think is more likely to happen in the first 24 hours in that space. Am I going to be exploited, or could something go wrong with one of the updates? And so this is one of those times I was proven right. It's been a while since that's happened, but I still sort of stick with my 24-hour period thing, just to see, because I just feel like the odds of me being the only one who didn't install it is probably pretty low. And so I tend to wait. And as it turned out, I was glad I did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think everybody should at this point install it. Did you install it on yours, Ben?
I'm one of the idiots who is currently on the beta track.
Oh, that's right. You're on beta track, so this wouldn't even affect you anyway.
But I have to say, Chuck's thinking is pretty prudent here.
Yeah, I agree.
Because with any new patch, there's always a chance to let something slip. They did this time, and Apple did it right. They pulled it, and then they re-released it once they fixed the error.
Yep, absolutely. So as I said, I think at this point, this was released a couple days ago as we record this. That it isn't a bad idea. Actually, I believe it was yesterday as we record this. I think you should go out at this point and take care of this. I'm going to include the article we talked about, as well as the how the rapid response works on Apple's platform. I'll include that link as well, so you get a better understanding what this all does. But very important that you do that. So
yeah. And Dave, I just threw in the show notes Ken Ray's current episode of The Checklist, his security podcast, where he gets into some of the nitty gritty on this. So I thought it was a really great, approachable explanation of it. And so that if you're really into what happened and why, give a listen to that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, Ken does have some great stuff on that show for talking about that. So we'll read that in show notes as well. Let's go ahead and move on. Next story. Everybody's favorite app, Shazam. The app can now identify songs in TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. This was this Apple just released this as it's famous music recognition app now can recognize and identify songs that are playing in third-party apps like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. According to Apple, the users can open up Shazam, tap the blue button, and then switch back to the app that they were using to see what's playing. The Shazam app engages the iPhone's microphone to hear the song and is able to listen while other apps are in use. A few seconds later, it'll identify the song, and it'll be swapped right back to Shazam, so you can go look and see about the information. It is simpler to use the built-in song recognition feature in iPhone's Control Center to identify a song. With song recognition, you can open up an app like YouTube and play a song and swipe into the Control Center to do this. But using this method does not require you to exit out of the YouTube app. Once a song is identified, it shows up as a notification in Dynamic Island, and you can then tap the Shazam app to get more information. So Shazam's really has come a long way. I mean, it was one of the very first apps that was released. I remember when we've had our iPhones for all these years. And I think it does a very good job of recognizing songs. What do you think, Ben?
I think as the years go by, it's becoming a better and better pickup for Apple.
Yeah.
And one of the more profile acquisitions Apple has done. But, things have changed. Hearing songs on these other platforms, especially in kind of like the TikTok shorts type of things, people are asking what songs are, and Shazam has now changed to kind of meet that current reality.
Yeah, no, that's true. Definitely. Chuck, have you used Shazam much? Have you tried it?
David, when it first came out, it's like, yeah, this is a great little toy. And I thought, you just never get around to deleting it off your phone. The number of times I have pulled it out and, like, what is that track? Who is that? Should I know that? And since Apple got it and it's become more integrated, it's just easier to use. And yeah, I probably use Shazam 5 or 6 times a month, which somebody's going to say that's not a lot, but yeah, it is, just given that usually I tend to be one of those intentional listeners that I know what I'm listening to. Mm-hmm. But if you're in a restaurant or something and you hear a song or a track that you think is interesting, yes, I mean, and sometimes I admit I've discovered artists that way or gained an appreciation for an artist that I would have completely ignored otherwise.
Yeah, no, I agree. So check it out. I think they did a real good job with that, and I think it's good stuff. Next story here: Apple adjusts the trade-in values for iPhones, iPads, Macs, and more. Apple had adjusted its estimated trade-in values for select iPhones, iPads, Macs, Apple Watch, Android smartphones in the United States. Some devices slightly increasing value, others seeing some decreases. Trade-in values probably increased between $10 and $20. Many newer devices, including the iPhone 13 and the 13 Pro Max, the latest iPad Pro, and going on and on, saw everything rose a little bit. So there is some good numbers as far as that goes. And, of course, you saw trade-in values decrease. The iPhone 8 and iPhone 8 Plus, of course, for example, did decrease since it is no longer being supported by the latest iOS. And I think Apple's done a really good job. I mean, I traded in an iPhone SE, a second generation, for a family member, and she ended up getting $90 for it. So then the second gen SE is a much older phone and iPhone, and it's something that definitely shouldn't get a lot of money for. But hey, $90 is $90. What do you think, Chuck?
Hey, I think it's interesting that we're seeing these trade-in values reflect probably market conditions. I mean, for a while, it was just, okay, here's the trade-in value, and it didn't change for months. And now all of a sudden, we're seeing changes, months, longer than that, really. And now we're seeing things go back and forth a little bit. I have to wonder if it's based on the supply that's coming in and as people trade up, or the demand, or just Apple paying a lot more attention, one, for whatever reason and through whatever method, of what's out there and how they can get get the best prices, because you know what's happening. One of two things: either they're taking these phones and they're tearing them down for raw materials, or they're refurbishing them and putting them back out on the market as the refurbished. So
Yeah.
whichever way it goes, there are a number of factors in that equation, and I'd love to know what that math looks like. But at the end of the day, it just more accurately reflects, what the phone is worth at that particular time.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, that we're not seeing anybody give, $10 for a phone or $20 for a phone. These things are still holding their value, or they're just Apple saying we don't want to bother with them. One of the two.
Except Android, of course.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I just checked the price on my 12 Pro Max. If Apple's willing to give me $460 for it,
nice.
Wow. They're still going to be selling the thing refurbished for a pretty penny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
which is fine, because maybe then you don't want to have to hassle with eBay or Craigslist or any of those things. You just pack it up, send it in, get your credit, and go get your new phone.
All those services like Gazelle, we don't hear about them anymore. Are they still around? I mean, I think they are, but a lot of those services are just kind of faded into the sunset. I mean, it's Apple's really the way to go for an iPhone. I mean, they're giving enough top dollar that why hassle with it, and you get credit. I mean, it worked perfect. She bought my family member bought an iPhone 14, and I took care of it for her, and it automatically did the trade-in for it, and you just send back in, and they'll give you their $90.
Yeah.
So Gazelle is still there, and I'm just punching it up here. So you can buy. Does that sell? No, I can sell my iPhone 14 Pro Max, 128 gigs. Oh, get an offer. That doesn't help.
Yeah, they won't. See, that's right. That's the other great thing about Apple. They're giving you the prices up front. They'll say this is what it is.
Yeah.
Those kind of services, you have to fill out all the information.
Well, and to be fair, those services are not in the business of refurbishing anything. So, they're going to take it as is and try to resell it, maybe, buff it up a little bit, but that's it. Apple could spend just a little bit of money making it a little bit nicer, or, taking care of cosmetic issues. So an iPhone 12 Pro Max 128 gig unlocked is selling for $559 on Gazelle.
Jeez, that's unbelievable. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's what's great. It's holding the value. I'm really pleased to see that.
iPhone 14 Pro Max 256 gig unlocked, $939.99.
Nice.
Yeah. So
it's actually not too far off what I paid for it, honestly.
Yeah. And there's a reason they're holding these values. This phone, the reason that I have kept it almost 3 years now, I haven't had any depreciable decline in capability.
Yep.
It was a great phone when I bought it brand new. It's a great phone now. And quite frankly, if the USB-C rumors turn out to be false, it might be a great phone for a couple of years to come.
Yeah, it probably will be. I mean, the 12 will go for, just like the iPhone 8, how long did that last? And, you could probably get 6 to 8 years on an iPhone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the side effect to having what is essentially a desktop processor or desktop cores in a mobile phone. Yeah.
Did you have that point?
Ben, you make an interesting point, though, that I really hadn't thought about it in exactly that fashion. That you may not get the latest feature, so you may not necessarily climb up the ladder, but the ladder's not being pulled out from under you as fast as with some other phones. Maybe not at all, from what you're saying, for your use case. So it's fine. It doesn't suffer in any of its capabilities, and you're right
at all.
And with the chip they're putting in them now, why not?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Go out there and go buy an upgraded phone, or at least trade your old one, and then you can be happy and have a little bit newer one. So, let's move on. Although this story was coming out before the actors' strike has just hit as we record today, Apple TV Plus has gained 54 Emmy awards, led once more by Ted Lasso. The final season of Ted Lasso earned them 21 of those 54 nominations, with nods to Bad Sisters and The Problem with Jon Stewart. The nominations were announced, and overall, the highest ever total by 3 more than last year, while Ted Lasso had 21 itself. The third and final season of the hit comedy picked up awards across a whole range of categories, from acting, writing, directing, as well as all kinds of good things here. So, like I said, Problem with Jon Stewart got nominations. That's a very good talk show, and so it's great to see that Apple TV Plus shows are getting more and more recognized. I believe. God, I'm having a brain cramp there. What was the other show with Harrison Ford and
yeah, the one where they're psychologists.
The psychologist. Why am I having a cramp there? Won't remember that.
This is like a 3-way brain cramp.
Yeah, that was
exactly.
So yes, that got a nod too. So it's great to see. I also believe that the Super Bowl halftime show with Rihanna got some nominations too. So
yeah,
what do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I mean this shows the level of quality that the shows are. I mean, I've said it before. A couple of years back, you didn't know what was on Apple TV. These days, I mean, the Ted Lasso, The Morning Show, Foundation, Silo, Severance.
Yep.
You can't throw a rock on Apple TV Plus without hitting something great.
No, Platonic. I'm enjoying that show. I've been watching that with Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne. That's a kind of a fun show. And Shrinking was the show. The name I couldn't remember.
Yeah, Shrinking. Yep. And now they have something for everybody.
They do. It's a lot of good choices, and I think it just continues to have really good shows. And so good to see if they have the Emmy Awards. Who knows? with the strike going on, the strike with the writers and now the actors, we might not be seeing other than we know they got nominated here. So
I'm not a big awards person, but the fact that Apple is making these kind of waves in that particular part of the industry just says so much about the way they've approached it. And how many times did we hear people joking about Apple's getting into a place where they shouldn't be playing? How many times have we heard that? And they go in, and you can say, yes, they're spending a lot of money, that Apple TV Plus has not made money yet. Well, okay, fine. Maybe it hasn't, but that doesn't mean it won't. And it's slowly but surely adding more revenue to the coffers. Yep. And if they keep doing what they're doing, if they can find or develop these kind of quality shows and invest the proper amount of money in them, man, it's just one more Apple juggernaut.
No, I agree. This is an interesting story when it involves Elon Musk. Apple is letting Tesla skip millions of dollars in App Store fees. Tesla's Elon Musk has previously said he would go to war rather than pay Apple Store fees, but Apple appears to have long since surrendered one particularly significant charge. Apple's App Store rules are many and complicated, and they have been criticized for a de facto global tax by Musk and others, chiefly firms who want to run their own stores, but Tesla is seemingly flattering one clear in-app payment rule, and Apple's allowing it. The issue centers around Apple's iPhone app's View Live camera feature. Tesla charges $10 a month for that feature, such as a web browser, and that it's legitimately excluded from Apple's fees because the browser runs in cars, not on iPhones. However, as part of that tier premium features, it's possible to use the Tesla iPhone app to monitor cameras in the owner's car. A Tesla owner pays on this monthly fee that can access the camera from the app and talk to its occupants. So if a thief steals a Tesla, the owners can watch them drive away. It's kind of like Find My here. So, but why give Tesla any break? Come on, they don't even want to integrate iPhone into their cars in the first place. I mean, there's we'll have another story in a minute about that. But why would I want to give them a break? I mean, I guess he could create a lot of issues too. But, right, Ben?
I mean, there's that, but I think it's one of those things where this is a very niche category.
Yep.
I mean, what would Apple gain by essentially allowing customers of a car to not be able to have an app for that?
Right. It doesn't make sense, but that's how it's been with Tesla owners. So,
yeah, because I mean, in a lot of cases, your phone in that app is now your key on these newer smart vehicles. If it comes right down to it, if the owners had to choose between getting a brand new $50,000 to $100,000+ vehicle and switching to Android, I don't like Apple's chances on that one, unfortunately.
Yeah. What do you think, Chuck?
My opinions are never popular in this kind of thing because, first of all, it's Apple's store. They can make the rules. They can make the exceptions. It seems like this is and of course, we're looking at the write-up here from, what is it, Apple Insider.
Yeah.
So, we don't have Apple's official statement, and they probably will never make one about exactly why they decided to do this, why it may or may not break this. As the article says, one feature does appear to break those rules. And so I'm going to take that as somebody did some research and assume that it looks that way. But I kind of want the rest of the story before I condemn Apple. That said, there are a lot of Teslas out there on the road.
Yeah,
and,
there is.
To Ben's point, why would you want to alienate those folks? It might be worth bending a rule or providing an exception, for that particular market. And who knows, maybe it'll help crack the ice and have Elon at least consider CarPlay. So I don't like the idea of Elon extorting Apple for that. But on the other hand, if he's got the audience and Apple wants it, it's one way of paying him by not paying him.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's true. Meanwhile, Apple's AirPlay was found in the latest version of the Tesla iPhone app after Musk signaled support. Apple CarPlay is probably never coming to Tesla EVs, but the next best thing is on its way. It's been over a year since Elon Musk and Tesla said they would consider adding AirPlay support to enhance wireless audio quality for music from iPhones. At the time, Musk had tweeted that he would discuss this with other improvements with Tesla audio engineering when asked about bringing AirPlay to support. Now, fast forward to now, and it appears like the Tesla audio engineers team has been laying the groundwork for Apple's wireless audio technology. That's according to a at Tesla iOS app. I guess it's not via at Tesla on Twitter, who've decompiled the latest version and discovered its interest. So it says one little string there: allow AirPlay for media playback. So did Elon give in? It's very possible. I think this is actually pretty good news for Tesla owners, if you ask me. What do you think, Ben?
Definitely. I mean, Tesla has always been kind of apart from the rest of the car industry. Number one, because it does have an Apple-like following, and they also have that independence. If you can't get CarPlay, maybe this is the next best thing.
Yeah, and I've always found that that AirPlay is a good substitute for anything that is, if it's not natively being supported with especially audio. It works. What's your thoughts, Chuck?
again, it's sort of the reverse of what we just talked about earlier. Apple has this incredible user base, and we've heard from Tesla owners that we all know that say the one thing they don't like about Tesla is it doesn't support CarPlay. So this might be a little bit of a bridge to satisfy them. I feel like it's a win for Apple. It's a win for Tesla owners, and it doesn't cost Tesla anymore anything other than just development costs. So again, the more choice you can give people and especially if they're expressing a desire, why wouldn't you address that especially if it doesn't cost you anything significant as far as the cost of the car or the maintenance of the car goes?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Next story here. There was a couple CarPlay stories here. CarPlay can now control a Porsche's air conditioning and more. Porsche has updated a companion app for its cars to make it easier for drivers to manage various functions of the vehicle from within the CarPlay interface. They announced that this week that this app is going to provide an access to a number of elements to the vehicle, including the level of charge in the battery, setting the navigation system destinations, and adjusting the air conditioning. In an update to its app, these functions are now accessible within CarPlay. As part of the update, drivers can see the images of the specific model of the car they are driving with CarPlay sound profiles, radio station controls, climate control, ambient light. So, of course, people who have money who can afford a Porsche are going to be very much beneficial. The reason I wanted to bring this up is because could this be a trend going further on other car manufacturers? What do you think, Ben?
I think this is absolutely great news.
Yeah.
To get to this point, Porsche would have, and quite possibly the rest of the VW group, would have to work very closely with Apple. For a company that has a reputation for historically not playing as well with others, it shows me, especially as kind of this as a bridge to the future CarPlay, Apple is putting in the effort with auto manufacturers to get kind of the next generation of CarPlay going.
Yeah, I mean that's the big goal. Is there? I'm interested to see when the first car comes out that has the new CarPlay dashboard, as Apple introduced it actually at WWDC 2022, and see where that goes. You think, Chuck, this is something that you'd like to see in other cars, other vehicles?
Well, sure. I mean, just because Apple's interface, if it can become standardized, it feels so much better. But because right now, if you rent a car or anything, half the time you spend 20 minutes trying to figure out just where the windshield wipers are.
Yeah, pretty much.
and that may be a little exaggeration, but you're especially when you're used to your car and you reach over and the knob that is usually there to control the air conditioning is no longer there. The thing that when I saw this story, it makes me wonder about going back to some of our discussions in the past about, is this the Apple car? Not the vehicle itself, but the operating system and the control panels and the controls. Is this how Apple will make its way into the auto industry in a meaningful fashion? And it would be sort of like Apple's modus operandi to work with the high-end folks to develop and put it in, and where the cost can be absorbed a little bit easier. And then as they get the expertise and the idea of how to manufacture it and make it available, they bring it down to the other levels for us mere mortals.
Yeah.
So I love this idea, and I'm sorry it's Porsche, because that means that the odds of us getting to try it are probably pretty slim.
Yeah.
But unless we hit the Powerball this week. But tonight? Beyond that, it is tonight. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, I mean, again, it's how can it be bad to work on these kind of integrations and just figure out how to do it and what people want out of those integrations, and then go from there.
Absolutely.
I mean, to me, the car seems a lot like the TV, where Apple wants to control the experience, but it also knows it's not in its best interest to control the the car or the screen, or in this case, the car. They want the user interface experience.
Yeah, no, that is true. That is true. Meanwhile, our friends at GM, the dealers, are not happy with the future of EVs and won't support CarPlay. This is an infinite number of ways that this could go bad. As we know, earlier this year, GM announced that its boneheaded decision to ditch CarPlay and all. I like this. Thanks, Chance Miller at 95 Mac. I like that line. In all of its future EVs, opted for a partnership with Google instead. The company has received an incredible amount of backlash since the announcement, and unsurprisingly, GM dealerships are also none too happy about the move. There was a report in the Detroit Free Press that rounds up comments and concerns for GM dealers who are still grappling with the GM surprise announcement. One source in close contact with multiple GM dealers explained the risk of failure is very high for the automaker abandoning CarPlay. And despite the move publicly in March, the GM dealers have not received any communication from the company about what exactly is happening. A good line here is, CarPlay is not broken. Why fix it? Ask a source in close contact with multiple GM dealers. Request on anonymity for business concerns. And then they said the risk is very high. Yeah, I don't understand why GM has made this decision. I think it's just absolutely ludicrous that they're going to be... There's going to be vehicles out there with no CarPlay support. I mean, this isn't 2014, 2016, those times where we were still waiting to get CarPlay in a car. Now they're just moving on to something else, and I just think it's going to be an epic fail. What do you think, Ben?
I think this will not end well for Mary Barra.
That too.
Yeah, if the dealers are riled up enough, and they have the potential to lose not only consumer sales, but fleet sales.
Yep.
I think there'll be either going to be the change the policy, or we'll find someone who will discussion.
Because that the fleet sales, meaning car rental companies, they're not going to want GM cars. I mean, even though they have a lot of GM cars in their fleet, probably people are going to be like, I don't want that car, and then move on to the next one.
Yeah. Yeah, the company that benefits most from this decision is Ford. Yep,
Ford and many of the other car manufacturers that are happily supporting CarPlay. What do you think, Chuck? Don't you think it's a crazy move?
I shake my head at this, and I didn't understand it when it came out, and I have not had anybody explain the logic to me other than just to say, well, GM is looking to create a revenue stream from subscriptions. By giving us or putting something in that we will then pay for, or that's if you really feel that strongly about trying to do it, then put CarPlay in and say we're going to charge you an extra $50-$100, or whatever, or some kind of subscription, because we really don't want CarPlay in, but if you want it, you can have it. You just have to pay for it. And right. but just to say flat out that they're not going to do it. When we see how, and I know we're all Apple enthusiasts, right? So maybe we're jaded, but I know how many times I hear non-Apple enthusiasts, just normal people, say how much they enjoy CarPlay, and so why would you decide? Again, we go back earlier to the Tesla and the app discussion.
Right.
If your customers say they want something, why are you not giving it to them, or at least giving them the option to have it?
Yeah, especially when they have the option to go somewhere else who is basically making a marketing campaign out of GM's decision.
Right. I mean,
exactly.
And like exactly. You said, go ahead, Chuck.
Well, just, I'm thinking, when I got my car, I mean, yes, CarPlay was a requirement. But, okay. And it had the Android Play or whatever their dash system is. It's like, fine, I don't care. Great. If it's never going to get used in my car, but I respected Honda, which is what I drive. I respected Honda for giving their users a choice. Here, GM, I can't keep wanting to say Apple. GM is not giving anybody a choice. I just don't get it in a world that is competitive right now, so competitive in so many ways. The EV market is strange because nobody knows what the heck it's going to look like in a few years. Meanwhile, Tesla's mopping the floor with everybody, whether you agree with it or not, like it or not. That's the way it is.
Yep.
So, why would you just on something as both unimportant and important as the entertainment system in your car? Why would you live and die on that hill?
Doesn't make sense. Absolutely doesn't make sense. A couple quick quotes here. Like you mentioned, Ben, Ford CEO Jim Farley had said from the Wall Street Journal, 70% of Ford customers are in the U.S. are Apple customers. Why would I go to an Apple customer and say, good luck? That's doesn't seem customer centric. And Apple does a very good job. So our philosophy is very different. And then you also have Tesla and Rivian are the two major holdouts in adopting CarPlay, but at least they've spent years and years of developing their own respective infotainment systems. GM has no plan. I mean, they're going to go find somebody and just be done with it. I just don't get it. He even says, I have zero faith in GM's ability to create something that will even remotely match the reliability and familiarity of the feature set of CarPlay. And Farley says he knows he gets it, understands how important CarPlay is to buyers, but GM's Mary Barra clearly doesn't. So,
Dave, you brought up a really interesting point there. That if they had a plan, or if they had a feature set that they could identify that their customers want, that CarPlay doesn't deliver. If they could hit a button and have a milkshake pop out of the dash, that would be a differentiator. But as it is, it just feels like a money grab in of the worst possible kind.
Yeah, it's like what's our feature? We're going back to 2013. That's our feature.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we move on to topics, I wanted to say hello, everybody in the chat on that's on youtube.com/intouchwithios. Hello to Guy Cyril, and also Web Bixby is in the chat. So how you doing, guys? Thanks for being there. Appreciate that. So let's go ahead and go on to the topics for this week. Well, beta's getting pretty active now. Beta iOS 17 public beta was released this week, so now the whole world can start being silly and putting beta on their devices.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. So this will be the first time. So that as Apple had promised in mid to late July that they were going to release this out to the public. The public beta testers who had signed up for the beta test program can download it now for iPad OS as well as iOS 17. And we've gone through a lot of the things that they've added with the AirDrops, name drops feature, and the FaceTime support and all that stuff. We've talked a lot about that. So it's good to see that now you're going to get some people who want to brave this. You can. One good thing is you can downgrade back. You can downgrade back to iOS 16 if you so wish, but it's quite the process. So I don't recommend doing this. This is not for the faint of heart. If you're not comfortable doing beta testing here, and they also put the public betas of WatchOS 10. Boy, I would never do that. I don't put beta on my watch at all. I mean, I just don't. So, and then also I wanted to mention too that macOS Ventura 13.5 is going to fix an iPod Shuffle syncing issue years after the device was discontinued. I found this to be interesting. They haven't released that version yet for Ventura 13.5, but it's going to resolve that syncing issue with a 4th generation iPod Shuffle, which they've discontinued for years. So there are some release notes talking about it, and it can't be synced to an unknown error. So, like I said, they discontinued the iPod Shuffle in 2017. So, it's interesting why they were worried about that fix. But I mean, Ventura in itself, it's good that you stay up on your updates. Keep this secured. They had the rapid response for Ventura as well. So just when that comes out, it'll be another update. But meanwhile, the developer version of iOS 17 Beta 3 was released this week, and that has come out for both. couple noted things that have come out that they've launched in iOS 17 beta, which includes a save to photos option. That's something new. And full screen, a full screenshot interface, and then also it's a better support for dual SIM. So the screenshots thing, have you tried that, Ben, with the new screenshots thing?
I have not, but now that I know about it, I really want to.
Yeah, I haven't updated this iPhone 10R yet, but
Yeah.
something because I love screenshots. I think a lot of us do, and then makes it easy to save to PDFs and a lot of other things, which is great. The other thing that there was something notable is for language support, bilingual Siri queries mixing English and Hindi and other Indic languages. That's kind of interesting. So you kind of mix that for across the board with iOS 17, iPadOS 17, and macOS Sonoma. We'll have this features for those users to include that bilingual queries because they're bilingual. So that's cool. Very cool to see that they're doing that. So other than that, I don't think there's been really all the stuff we've pretty much been talking about. The iOS 17 continues, and other interesting firmware upgrade that did come out too is AirPods. The AirPods firmware gets a second developer beta. I know we talked about the first one that came out. Developers are testing the AirPods firmware version 6, which was introduced during WWDC. That has the adaptive audio, and you go into beta 2 now. It increases the different builds, and again, Apple generally doesn't release any notes for firmware on a regular basis for AirPods, so I would probably recommend not doing it if I were you. Just let everybody else tell you about it, and then we'll get that feature soon for AirPods. I know, Chuck, you're waiting for a new pair of AirPods, and it's something that's we are going to be looking forward to with adaptive audio. So
yeah, I mean, and there's this terrible temptation. It looks so good, but just like everything else, if somebody were to give me a pair of AirPods that I could play with, and have a problem with them, then fine. But I feel like I depend on the AirPods way too much. So
we've got the older ones, but why am I going to bother with that? So that's another thing that's going to be happening here with in the firmware world here. So next story here, I wanted to talk a little about the App Store. The App Store, happy birthday to the App Store. It's 15 years since we have downloaded I just can't believe it. That the first app that was out there in the App Store, we go back a long ways away in 2007. There was no App Store. You just had the core apps on your iPhone, first gen, and that was it. So it was a year later, 2008, when they finally gained the App Store and making these apps. And I think this is something great and look where the App Store is today. I mean, there's millions upon millions of great apps that are out there. I don't think we would do that yet. So the iPhone 3G was the very first iPhone that had the App Store for the first time. So at first, if you remember Steve Jobs saying that there's no need for an App Store, when he said that, when he came up on stage that first time, we'll never forget that. The full Safari engine is good. It's good enough. You can access everything on the web that way, right? So what?
Then everybody hacked their phone.
Yeah, and then of course they jailbroke it, and that was always the famous thing to do. So I think that's kind of tapered off now. I don't see too much discussion about jailbreaking of iPhones these days. What was your do you remember what your first app was that you had installed, Ben? I think Shazam obviously was probably one of them.
Oh God. I wasn't there at the very beginning. My first was the 3GS.
Okay.
I can tell you what my first case was. I literally still have it in the drawer here, but
yeah. So did you have any apps I'm gonna put you on the spot, you guys, but do you recall an app that you may have installed the first time, Chuck, that you found to be useful?
David, I don't recall.
Yeah, it's
I
hard to remember. It's
just,
so long ago.
yeah,
Mhm.
and there've been so many apps since then.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
But and look, to be fair to Jobs, I mean, there was one vision for the app for apps, however they were going to run, and it was going to be through Safari.
Yeah.
And even now, there's still times that there are apps that are built that way that are that have a lot more functionality because for obvious reasons. That said, though, what can be done inside the iPhone with no connectivity now? I mean, it's a far cry from what could be done then.
Yeah.
So it almost, boy, I'm reaching back here a little bit, but think about the Newton and how it was a concept before its time, before the chips could support what was needed. And I kind of feel like maybe the early iPhones were that way because we had all these great ideas and developers wanted to do things with it, and the chipset just wasn't there. And now, to Ben's earlier comment, now we have desktop level chips in our phones.
Yeah.
And so our phones are lasting longer and they can do some really amazing things.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah. And the chipset's not being up to it exactly what led to Apple Silicon.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Yep.
So the App Store started with 500 apps. So there wasn't a lot of apps. I remember that. There was a little handful of collections. I would probably say now at this point, there's probably about 5 to 10 million. I'm probably just I'm exaggerating a little bit, but there's a lot of apps out there. And I think the biggest complaint was with Apple was the App Store and its gatekeeper position. They're giving an example here of that photo app was called 500px that had been downloaded over 1 million times, but it got pulled because of its existing photo search function. So they got a huge backlash about that. So an App Store reviewer had looked at a submitted update to the app and decided it was too easy for people to search for the feature to find nude photos. Okay. It was subsequently restored and it's still available today. So you get interesting like that. And we've talked about other things like Epic Games. I don't need to go down that rat hole with what happened with that. But I think overall the App Store has been very successful. We've got a lot of great apps out there. The ecosystem for the iOS and iPadOS is very solid. It's fun to look back and see where everything has been going and where the future is for the App Store. Don't you guys think?
I mean, and think about the money that the App Store generates for Apple and for developers.
Right.
And I know that we've had plenty of discussions about developers not being happy with the 30%. Right. But at the end of the day, somebody has made a whole lot of money off of the App Store on both sides of the fence. And so again, it's another one of Apple's kind of sleeper home runs that started out small and took off.
Yep. No, it was,
and I have to give Apple credit for the App Store. They saw what the community was doing and they quickly pivoted once it was obvious what users wanted. They could have stuck to their guns, but then I don't think the iPhone would be what it is today.
I agree.
Yeah.
Go into the chat room, Web Bixby. He says it was probably a fart app. There were so many of those. It was insane. I mean, I was always surprised that Apple just let those go. I mean, but there were so many of those. I think there's very few these days. I think people have lost a lot of interest in that particular type of app.
And remember all the different flashlight apps
too. Before the flashlight was added to the iPhone.
Don't forget the flashlight. Yeah.
That might have been my first.
Yeah.
Honestly, might have been mine too, because that would have been a very practical app that, it makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's here's to 15 more years of all these iPhones, all these apps, and I think it's going to be continue to do better, bigger, and better things here. So, it's very cool to see. Another thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was the Apple Watch. I'm curious what you guys do as far as which apps do you think you use the most on your iPhone? What on your Apple Watch? I mean, excuse me. And what do you think? What do you think is the biggest thing that really helps you with the use of the Apple Watch? I mean, I know we all love having it on our wrists. We love the
Mhm.
health part of it. Is there any Chuck? Is there any notable apps that you like to use that you're using on a daily basis on your Apple Watch?
Interesting question, David. I'd really have to go back and think about it because it's become so much part of my life. I think messages, absolutely.
Right.
Messages and reminders and alarms and those kind of things. One of the first things I do every day is after I sit down at the desk, I look at my calendar and I tell my watch that set an alarm for 10 minutes before this meeting, 10 minutes before that meeting, and 10 minutes before the next, because you get so engrossed in things. And I first of all, I hate being late for meetings,
Right.
but that kind of guarantees me that I'll get a little nudge no matter what I'm doing. It's like, oh yeah, 10 minutes from now, I got something. So, and that's no small thing, because that means that if I go out for lunch or if I take the trash out or whatever, that's going to go off on my arm. It's not like as great as the desktops are and as great as the phone is, it's still a superior experience. Yeah. The idea that I can get a message and surreptitiously glance down and see what it is, as opposed to having to pull out my phone. I mean, those were always the killer apps for me, and that hasn't changed. I'm a little bit compulsive right at the moment, as Apple stock has been having a great run at using the Stocks app. So beyond that, I honestly am going to have to, while Ben's talking, I want to look at my watch and see what else jumps out at me, because I know there are others. It just, it just kind of depends.
Yeah. For me, the obvious choice is going to be workout/fitness.
Yeah.
But kind of the non-obvious is just the little things. I mean, obviously, I look at it for timers. I look at it for notifications. But, then when I'm using CarPlay, I get a little tap when it's time to turn. I have my watch set up so I get the tap version of the old chime when it's the top of the hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's not one thing I do on my Apple Watch. It's just kind of do you remember those commercials where it's like, we don't make this, we make it better? That's kind of the role the Apple Watch plays for me.
Okay.
It just enhances everything else I do with my Mac and my iPhone and everything else.
Yeah. No, I can't agree with you more on that. And lot of the great things, like even be able to record, do a voice recording on the Apple Watch is a handy thing. Answering your phone, as we talked about, is something I probably do a good fair amount, and then replying to text using voice, which is nice. The timers, like Chuck mentioned, is something that's is great. I don't check email too much on the Apple Watch. Do you guys check your email on your Apple Watch much? It's just really hard.
Yeah.
Well, I don't check it, but it's very good for letting me know when there is an email.
Okay.
And while I was cheating, I was looking at my watch. There's the golf app called Hole 19 that I use regularly, usually on weekends only, unfortunately. There's also an app I'll be using as we head to Macstock, and that is TripIt, and also the airline apps. That you can now receive the notifications on your watch, as opposed to having to, as you're dragging your luggage through the airport, and you feel the phone buzz and have to, drop it and see what's going on. I can glance out of my watch to see, oh, okay, my flight's been canceled. I better go make a new one. Yeah. So there are different situations that may not happen every day, may not happen every week or even every month. But boy, when you're in them, it's perfect for those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the bands is another nice feature. I think the Apple did a great job of just offering. So, I mean, I'm crazy. I have so many bands, and I'm sure we all do.
Yeah.
Changing them out all the time, and it's just so easy to change the bands on Apple Watch compared to your standard watch. I mean, there was with I remember the old those watches with the post that you had to kind of get a little tool in there, slid it in there, and then let it pop out. Well, Apple made it so
yeah,
easy.
I hated those.
Me too. I was like, every time a band broke, I had to change it, and like, oh my god, I got to get a jeweler's screwdriver and slide this thing out. And so I think they did a good job. And you know what? Kudos to Apple too is keeping the band sizes pretty much the same. I mean, it's slightly smaller face, but those bands still are backwards compatible. And we've got eight generations of Apple Watches, and every band that you've ever had, from Series 0 to Series 8, and including the Ultra, you can use the same band, and that kudos to Apple for doing that, because there was never most companies would probably say, yeah, time for a redesign. They've got to go buy new bands. Like he gave the example about the USB-C. There's going to be just like when the 30-pin connector went to Lightning, the big the mass craze of, oh my god, I have all these cables, what am I going to do now? All right, here's an adapter. So Apple did give in on that. So, but the Apple Watch, they've stayed pretty solid when it comes to keeping the standards with the battery. So I mean with the band. I mean, so it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I really like my Apple Watch, and I'm looking forward to I'm probably going to upgrade to the Series 9. I waited. Was stuck with the Series 7, and I've been fine with it. I'm still happy with this watch, and I think, Chuck, I know you have the Series 8. Do you have the Series 8 as well? Or
No, I stuck with 7.
Oh, you and I. That's right. We both did the same thing. Okay.
Yeah, sort of the same reason. There wasn't a compelling reason for me to get it, other than just the fact there was a new one.
Right.
But I'm not a watch band guy. All right. I think I've owned maybe a total of 5 watch bands, 3 of which are sitting in a case on my dresser in case I ever need them. But the design of the Apple Watch band is why so many of us wish Apple would get into this business, or take over that industry or whatever. It's just something like that for decades, if not probably longer, the watch industry did not solve a common problem. And Apple came in and just wiped the floor with it and said, why is this so difficult? And as a result, this is a poor analogy, but I'll do it anyway. Sort of like the App Store, they created a market. They created a market for all these very high priced watch bands that they sell, but also all the knockoffs.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I won't speak for Ben. I didn't see him shaking his head, but I know you, David. You're an addict.
I am.
You've got more watch bands than I have socks, and so
I do.
So it's.
I found a special. What was it? Woot had a special. You could get like 15 bands for $15.
Yeah,
and they're all different. Yeah, look at, he's got his little collection.
Ben.
He's got even an organizer. He's got an organizer.
Oh my God,
for
he's got a watch band. Oh, my head just exploded.
I got to get that.
Yeah. Yeah. Please, Ben, send David the link. He needs that. But yeah, I mean, those are the things that Apple just does so well. And I love it. That one didn't affect me, but it wouldn't be hard to, except that I put my watch on in the morning. I take it off, and at night, or no, actually, I take it off when I get in the shower because I sleep with it. So
okay, yeah. So
more than you needed to know, probably.
Good discussion. I think we don't spend a lot of time talking about the Apple Watch and really what it means to you, and people just assume it's for looking at the watch and the health stuff. But there are so many other things that we really like about that. So. One tip I wanted to talk about here before we wrap up here is I didn't even realize this until I caught this the other day. Here is the ability to being able to organize scheduled summaries. And what I'm talking about is if you go into the notifications under settings, there is a selection under there called scheduled summary. So I have it turned off right now, but if you go and turn it on, we always get those notifications. Like I've got Twitter notifications. I get those all the time. You get the wallet notifications. T-Mobile, I get notifications from them to let me know about things. The MLB app, because we got to know the scores of the Cubs game. Even Mac Geekab, for our friend Dave Hamilton, now you have his app in there and tells me when his episode drops and when he's streaming live. So, but you can actually choose apps for and what it's called as a summary. You pick a couple of the apps, and you can click add apps, and then you can set a specific schedule of a summary. So instead of getting them all at once or getting them all the time, you can go in and schedule it. So in this case, I added a couple apps here, and then you can get a first summary around a certain time and then a second summary for another time. So if you only want 2 summaries a day, you can get that to kind of give it a bit of a control to do that. I thought this was a cool little thing to be able to adjust some of the summary notifications, because they do drive you crazy, especially if you have a lot of apps that you turn on notifications. And instead of all or nothing, turn off notifications completely. At least this gives you kind of a granular way of doing this. Have you guys set this up at all?
I didn't even know it was a thing.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, right there with you. So
I found a good tip that no one knew about on the panel.
So I'll be playing with this right after the show.
Yeah, this is great. And I'm going through my whole list here, and it's got, oh my gosh, there's all kinds of stuff in here, all the way from the weather app to Zelle to the fitness app, even DuckDuckGo and Authy and the support app from Apple. So you can actually narrow them down if you want. It's always turned off by default, but I thought this was kind of a cool thing to do.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a solution to my complete overgrowth of social media notifications.
That too. We've got T2. We've got Blue Sky. We've got Twitter. We've got Threads, Facebook. There's just so many of them now, and I don't have all those notifications turned on. I had Twitter only because I like to get notified, like Mac rumors and like all the news. Those are all on my feeds to notify me, but. Everybody has their own ways of setting up notifications, but yeah, this is a way to, you only want a summary like 1 or 2 times a day, you can set it. So,
nice tip, David. Tip.
Yeah, well, good. So before we go, we are 1 week away from Macstock. I still can't believe it. So, Macstock Conference and Expo, we're going to see all our friends. I wish you were going to be there, Ben. We're going to have you there in spirit and try to get you in some videos or something. We'll try to get you to participate somehow, but we're going to miss you. But the Macstock Conference and Expo.com. It's 1 week from this coming Saturday as we record this. Tickets are sold out, unfortunately. But you could get on the waiting list, but I'm pretty sure Mike Potter has, the organizer has put that list to bed, because I don't think there's going to be an opportunity, because everybody wants to be here. But there are still virtual tickets available. So if you go to the website, I have a link in the show notes to come to watch us virtually. It's not that terribly expensive. You can enjoy a virtual Macstock, and you actually be able to go back and watch all of our presentations after the fact as well. Chuck will be there. I'll be there. Brittany Smith is going to be there. Brittany, I almost said the wrong thing.
Brittany Spears will be there.
I just corrected myself. Jeff Gamet, Allison Sheridan, and many, many, many great others. Dave Hamilton will be speaking. They'll be also doing a live Mac Geek Gab, which I'm looking forward to. So we got all of these great speakers going to be there, and we're going to have a lot of fun. It's a nice, cozy venue, so a lot of our folks are going to have a lot of fun. But come on, come join us virtually. We would love to see you. And it's going to be July 22nd, 23rd. Like I said, almost a little more than a week away. I'm looking to see all of our friends and have a lot of fun here. So again, it's MacstockConferenceandExpo.com. Come check us out. We'd love to see you, whether it's virtually or if those of you who are listening are already going to have tickets, we'll make it. So, but with that, let's go ahead and wrap it up for this week. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. And that's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, which is feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Twitter @intouchwithios, or you also can follow us on Mastodon @intouchwithios. Support the show by buying me a coffee at intouchwithios.com/coffee. We would really appreciate it. can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/intouchwithios. We have 2 tiers available to support the show. We would really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. So when you're notified that we are live streaming, which is on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/intouchwithios, where you can watch the current past live streams as well as listen to past shows. You can also visit our In Touch with iOS magazine on Flipboard, where many of the topics we discuss are flipped into that magazine. The link is in the show notes. You can listen to us and subscribe in your favorite podcatcher, which includes Pocket Casts, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, and many others. But better yet, go to our website at intouchwithios.com, where all the links to all the ways to listen to us are there. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Mastodon at DaveG65, as well as Twitter. And Chuck Joyner, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you?
Dave, thank you for having me. It's always a blast. Yeah. MacVoices.com is where you'll find everything. Just today, we published the last of the speaker interviews for the Road to Mac Stock, and that was Dave Hamilton. Yes. We do Mac Voices Live Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are, at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. And you can also connect with me on a whole bunch of the socials, not Blue Sky yet, but pretty much everything else as at Chuck Joyner.
One of us is going to get you an invite somehow, some way. We're waiting for the first one. Well, second one for Ben. Because Ben got
See
me.
what happens.
Thanks, Chuck. And Ben Roethig, thanks so much for being here. Where can people find you?
Well, Dave, you can find me at Ben Roethig on the 10,000 different social media networks. You can find me at Roethig.tech for my thoughts. On Tuesday nights, you can find me on this Mac Voices show with some guy named Chuck Joyner. I don't know. Never heard of him. Yeah, Thursday nights, you can definitely find me here. And then Thursday and Friday afternoons, you can find me on the British Tech Network, The Big Show, and The Mac Show.
Great. Thanks for being here, Ben. And before we go, I just make sure to give you a programming note. Of course, like we said, Mac Stock is going on, and next Thursday night, we are going to be at our friend Barry Folk's house as he has the Midwest Back Barbecue going on. We're going to have such a blast with everybody, and graciously offered that I could record our podcast live at the event. So we're going to try to attempt that. I'll be setting up a little mini studio and have all of our friends come on and then have a planned show. So hopefully we can be able to get that pulled off, and you'll be able to listen to a lot of great things for that show next week. So that's next week after this show. But thanks again for being here, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the show. We enjoyed doing it. And we'll talk again soon.